We're always looking for ways to bring more gospel light into your life. Join us on our new Facebook and Instagram pages and bring a little more Jesus to your scroll. Don't miss out. Click on the link in the description below to follow us on social media today. Now enjoy this week's episode.
When an 8-year-old child is baptized, they take upon themselves the name of Christ. Well, shortly after the church turned 8, it received Christ's name when the Lord revealed, "Thus shall my church be called, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints." Now, in our last video, we discussed that the bank Joseph Smith and Sidney Rigdon established had collapsed. But even though Joseph's business was a failure, he was still the Lord's chosen prophet. Sadly, many didn't see it that way, and some members began calling Joseph a fallen prophet and left the church. As persecution increased, Joseph received a revelation telling him to move to Far West immediately. That night, he and Sidney rode out of town and hid until their families met up with them later that week, and together they moved to Far West, Missouri. Sadly, 1838 saw most church members leaving behind their beloved city and temple and moving to Missouri. The church had been in Kirtland for less than 8 years. Now, life in Missouri wasn't all sunshine and unicorns. So, let's take a quick look back in time to better understand how everything fits together. In 1831, the first saints arrived in Missouri and lived in and around Independence in Jackson County, but were forced to leave in November 1833. They'd only been there a little over 2 years. Persecution then drove them north across the river to Clay County, where the initially friendly residents helped provide shelter, jobs, and food. The saints tried everything in their power to peacefully return to their properties in Jackson County, but weren't successful. While residing in Clay County, no revelations instructed the saints to establish a city or to construct a temple there, as it was just to be a short-term place to live. In the spring of 1836, Clay County residents asked them to move on. They'd only lived there about 2.5 years. Alexander Doniphan was not a member, but he was one of the great friends of the church. He proposed a bill before the Missouri legislature to create a new county in northern Missouri, mainly for the saints. This led to 2 new counties, Caldwell with the city of Far West, and Davies with Adam-on-Diamond. Thereafter, in the summer and fall of 1836, church members poured into these counties, establishing several communities. However, 2 years later, problems again arose as thousands of saints now lived in these 2 counties, with hundreds more still arriving every month. Then, on the 4th of July, Sidney Rigdon made an infamous speech about freedom, casting out dissenters, and claiming what was rightfully theirs. The speech scared many, who interpreted it as treason and justification to get rid of all saints. This, along with inflammatory letters and other misunderstandings, led to the even more infamous extermination order, signed by Governor Lilburn W. Boggs on October 27, 1838. The order authorized the expulsion of Latter-day Saints from the state of Missouri, or their extermination, which meant if they didn't leave, they could legally be killed. By early 1839, nearly all church members had left the state and were looking for a permanent place to live. They were spread across Iowa and Illinois, anxiously waiting for further guidance from their prophet, who was now imprisoned in Liberty Jail. Saints had lived in Far West and the surrounding areas for about 2.5 years, and the Kirtland members had only been in Missouri for less than 7 months, with some still arriving. Now they all needed a place to live and worship peacefully, but that wouldn't happen for a little while. A few months before the extermination order was issued, Joseph received a revelation on July 8, 1838, calling 4 new apostles to replace those who'd apostatized: John Taylor, John E. Page, Wilford Woodruff, and Willard Richards. The revelation further stated that the 12 should be organized, and that the following spring they should depart to go over the great waters to preach the gospel, and they're supposed to leave from the temple site in the city of Far West on the 26th of April, 1839. Can you see why this may be a problem? Since the extermination order of 1838, no saints were allowed in Missouri upon penalty of death. And the enemies of the church were determined to make sure this revelation would not be fulfilled. Enter Brigham Young, who was now the president of the Quorum of the 12 and determined to fulfill this commandment exactly, even though they were now living about 200 miles away in Illinois and Iowa. In April, Brigham gathered together the available apostles and those called to serve missions in England. For several days, they painstakingly snuck hundreds of miles back to the woods outside of Far West. Then, just after midnight, now April 26th, just as the revelation stated, they moved the huge cornerstones back into place at the Far West Temple, ordained and set apart the new apostles, and as the sun rose, they finished their meeting. But before they left town, Brother Turley, one of the missionaries, went and knocked on the door of apostate Isaac Russell. Turley said he just wanted to say goodbye, and then explained that all the apostles had held their meeting and were now heading to England to spread the gospel, just as commanded. Oh no, what day is it? Thus, every part of the prophecy had been fulfilled, and Isaac Russell could only stare dumbfounded as they left town. Next time, we'll learn the tragic story of the prophet's time in Liberty Jail and the great revelations he received there.
It takes a lot to make these videos, so to keep Line Upon Line free for everyone, consider signing up for Living Scriptures Plus. Check it out by clicking the link in the description below. And thanks for watching. If you feel this video has helped you on your path towards truth and Christian discipleship, please subscribe and share. And most importantly, go read the scriptures for yourself.